We now know how Russiagate got started, and we know that it was all a lie started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That the Hillary Clinton campaign realized she was in trouble because of her email scandal, which had broken in 2015 in the wake of Benghazi. We found these emails of hers that were weird, and people were like, what server was that on, and so on. And it created a problem for her all the way up to Election Day 2016.
But I could see them and hear them in my ear, and they said, Tulsi Gabbard, you're coming out and criticizing Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy record. Aren't you afraid of what she'll do to you? He asked me this on live television on MSNBC. And you're laughing. I laughed too. I was like, no, I am not afraid of what Hillary Clinton can do to me.
MegynKelly and Tulsi Gabbard stepping up to call out Hillary Clinton is like watching a powerful tag team of bold voices and fearless truths taking on a political giant who thought she had already faced it all, from campaign mistakes to years of controversies. They left nothing covered. Hillary's polished image started to crack under the weight of their direct attacks, exposing the contradictions, scandals, and failures that kept her from reaching the power she so strongly wanted. This was not just regular criticism, it was a complete takedown delivered with sharp wit and raw energy.
Of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents.
If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. MegynKelly's sharp commentary cuts straight through the polished mask of establishment politics, exposing Hillary's failure to truly connect with everyday voters despite decades in the public eye. She peels back the layers of scripted speeches and forced empathy to reveal a politician more focused on image than real substance. MegynKelly mocks the constant attempts to rebrand, turning every campaign slogan into nothing more than a reminder of missed opportunities and misplaced priorities.
Stole his first term as president. These absolute liars who run around trying to act like they're the protectors of democracy completely ruined it, tried to undermine it at every turn and at the highest levels with lies, with out and out lies that were really serious, and changed foreign policy and changed the course of history in this country in Trump's presidency. And there must be accountability. There has to be actual criminal accountability for those who lied. And I can't wait to see this administration.
Tulsi Gabbard brings a unique insider's view, breaking down Hillary's foreign policy record with sharp clarity. From controversial decisions in the Middle East to deep connections with powerful elites, Tulsi reveals a history full of contradictions and moral compromises. Her critique highlights how Hillary's actions often clashed with the very values she claimed to defend, exposing a politician more focused on power than genuine progress.
All of these pieces fit quite seamlessly together, creating a very clear timeline that shifted from before the election, the intelligence community almost uniformly saying essentially that Russia is trying to sow discord in the US election, but has no preference for one candidate over another. And then all of a sudden, Trump wins the election, surprising many people, both here and abroad, as we've learned in later documents that we've reviewed, that throughout that campaign, Russia believed that Hillary Clinton would win the election.
Together, MegynKelly and Tulsi deliver a hard-hitting takedown that exposes the cracks in Hillary's carefully built image. The scandals, the missteps, and her repeated failure to earn genuine trust are all laid out for everyone to see. Their voices blend into a sharp critique that shatters the myth of Hillary Clinton, revealing a career defined less by real achievement and more by controversy and missed chances. It's a relentless roast that leaves no room for excuses, a blunt reality. Check for a figure who once seemed untouchable but now stands completely broken down.
Our audience knows this and you guys, but just for the record, let's play SOT 10.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
We're trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Hillary Clinton's political journey has been full of contradictions, a roller coaster of big expectations followed by deep disappointments. Tulsi Gabbard doesn't just call out her mistakes, she exposes the gap between the polished image Hillary presents and the messy reality behind it. It's the story of a politician who knew how to stay in the spotlight but could never truly win the trust or loyalty of the people she claimed to stand for.
So concerning about what Hillary Clinton is doing here is she is not only calling me a traitor, she is not only trying to smear my character, she's sending a warning out to every veteran, every single American, anyone who stands up against the warmongering foreign policies that really are her legacy, that have been so destructive and costly to my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Kelly's critique highlights Hillary's communication style as polished but empty, rehearsed yet missing real authenticity. She paints a picture of a politician whose words often sounded scripted, like they were designed for focus groups instead of genuine connection. MegynKelly points out how Hillary's campaign speeches, full of promises and visions, often rang hollow to voters tired of political double talk. This wasn't the voice of a leader inspiring a movement, but of someone struggling to stay relevant in a fast-changing political world. At the same time, Tulsi Gabbard's insider perspective adds weight to the takedown. With the eye of an experienced veteran, she breaks down Hillary's foreign policy, refusing to avoid controversies like Libya and Syria, and showing how Hillary's choices often led to destructive results beyond the campaign stage. Tulsi's analysis reveals a pattern of interventionist policies that clashed with the very ideals of peace and diplomacy Hillary claimed to support. Together, they argue this balancing act only deepened the mistrust of voters who saw through the carefully crafted image.
And as she got closer to Election Day, she decided to concoct 2 lies about Donald Trump to distract from her email scandal. She got the Steele dossier through this Fusion GPS company that her campaign paid, and she got this group CrowdStrike, which was the one responsible for the hack into that's the one that said that the Russians hacked the DNC email.
MegynKelly doesn't hold back when calling out Hillary's efforts to control the narrative through the media. She reveals how the Clinton campaign leaned on its influence over news coverage and worked to silence critics, creating an environment, one where dissent was quickly crushed. This wasn't the open and accountable leadership voters hoped for, but a carefully managed PR machine designed to protect a fragile image at all costs. Tulsi's critique cuts even deeper as she highlights Hillary's failure to adapt to a shifting political climate. She points out how the campaign ignored the rising frustration of working-class voters whose struggles were dismissed, leaving room for rivals to win over even longtime supporters. The roast also dives into the infamous email scandal, which both Kelly and Tulsi argue was far more than a minor political misstep. Tulsi stresses that it symbolized a broader pattern of poor judgment and ethical lapses that defined Hillary's career.
When I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, specifically so that I could campaign against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary.
MegynKelly highlights the contradictions in Hillary's career, pointing out how her rise was praised as breaking glass ceilings, yet her campaign tactics often clashed with the unity expected from a feminist leader. Tulsi adds that Hillary missed key opportunities to build real coalitions, as political calculations always took priority, pushing away potential allies. As the roast continues, Kelly and Tulsi don't just point out failures, they dismantle the myth of inevitability that surrounded Hillary's career. They challenge the belief that her victory was ever guaranteed, showing instead how her campaign was riddled with strategic errors, overconfidence, and a failure to properly read the opposition. Their takedown strips away the layers of media, hype, and reveals a campaign struggling to connect with a diverse and skeptical public. They also underline how Hillary's legacy remains deeply divided. MegynKelly notes that while some supporters still stand by her, many others view her as a symbol of political frustration and disappointment. Tulsi echoes this sentiment, stressing that Hillary's story serves as a warning about the limits of ambition when it isn't matched with genuine care for the people's real concerns.
One of the pieces that Glenn and I were getting close to in the discussion was the Hillary piece of this and the evidence, because that is, they do name a couple of names in this appendix on who came up with this scam. And the name that we keep seeing over and over, as one of them at least, was Julianne Smith. Schellenberger writes Julianne. It's Julianne. He writes, the alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor.
The conclusion lands with power and precision. Kelly and Tulsi's critique paints Hillary Clinton not as someone undone by bad luck, but as the very author of her own downfall. They argue her legacy will be remembered less for historic firsts, and more for the wasted opportunities, broken trust, and an image that crumbled under constant scrutiny. This isn't just a roast, it's a reckoning, a push to look beyond myths and media spin to confront the complicated truth of one of America's most examined political figures. Kelly and Tulsi drive home the lesson that in politics, as in life, authenticity and accountability matter far more than polished speeches or carefully staged appearances. Together they expose the core of what went wrong, not only during the campaign but in the very foundation of Hillary's political identity. What emerges is a portrait of a woman who tried to be everything to everyone and in the end became nothing to anyone.
Also in this latest House report, they talk about how they also in the House, this is the House in 2020, pointing out that the ICA of 2017 ignored evidence that Putin seemed to be protecting Hillary Clinton in a couple of ways. It did not mention, for example, that Putin chose not to leak info he appeared to have on Hillary Clinton's health, including that she suffered from psycho-emotional problems and was on daily tranquilizers. We don't know whether that's true. We know that Putin appeared to have that intel in his pocket and chose not.
Leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people.
MegynKelly exposes how carefully constructed Hillary's public image really was, showing a politician who tried to build a persona that could appeal to everyone but ended up connecting with very few. The polished speeches, the rehearsed shows of empathy, and the constant attempts to look relatable came across as empty performances instead of genuine connections. Kelly's critique cuts deep, reminding us that when authenticity is sacrificed for appearances, voters see through it, and that gap can become politically fatal. Tulsi adds an insider's sharp perspective, going beyond surface flaws to attack Hillary's political strategies, especially in foreign policy. From military interventions to close ties with powerful elites and decisions that destabilized entire regions, Tulsi examines them with striking precision. Kelly also highlights how Hillary's rise was built on constant compromises, often at the cost of her own values, while Tulsi stresses the many missed chances to stand firm on issues that truly mattered to voters, showing how this endless maneuvering ultimately destroyed public trust.
So the Russians were able to hack Leonard, and that's where they saw the plan. And we now have in the Durham Annex, like full screen grabs of the Russian memos that the Dutch got their hands on and leaked to us, where the Russians are recounting exactly what they saw Leonard discussing about this Hillary Clinton fan and emissary, Julianne Smith, and how they were going to stop Trump, undermine Trump, but most importantly, distract from Hillary's email scandal.
Hillary's media strategy is revealed as one of her biggest weaknesses, with MegynKelly pointing out how the campaign's attempts to control the story often backfired. Instead of showing openness, the constant effort to silence dissent and manage coverage created an image of defensiveness. Tulsi stresses that at a time when people were demanding transparency, this approach only fueled deeper skepticism and mistrust. A major focus of the roast is Hillary's broken connection with voters, especially the working class who felt overlooked. MegynKelly shows how the campaign's messaging failed to address real economic struggles, leaving the door open for rivals to win support. Tulsi highlights how this failure to engage with those communities widened the distance between Hillary and the people she wanted to lead. The infamous email scandal is also ripped apart without mercy, with MegynKelly mocking the poor damage control that turned a chance for accountability into a long display of confusion. Tulsi explains how the scandal symbolized deeper issues, showing a pattern of poor judgment and ethical lapses that destroyed Hillary's credibility. The roast also exposes contradictions in her claims about women's rights, pointing out how her actions often failed to match her words.
This woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
MegynKelly highlights the clear tension between Hillary's feminist rhetoric and the political tactics that sometimes worked against female rivals. Tulsi adds that these contradictions weakened what could have been a powerful and unifying message, turning solidarity into calculated strategy. As the critique sharpens, Kelly and Tulsi dismantle the myth of inevitability that surrounded Hillary's rise, arguing that her campaign's overconfidence blinded her to real challenges and shifting political currents. MegynKelly points out how Hillary underestimated the strength of grassroots movements and the public's demand for genuine change, while Tulsi agrees that this misjudgment became a fatal flaw in an era when authenticity mattered more than establishment politics. The roast builds to a powerful conclusion, reminding that true political success is not only about breaking barriers, but also about building trust and real connections with the people who matter most. In the end, Hillary Clinton's story becomes both a warning and a lesson about what real leadership must look like.